Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Хайрлы күн ханымдар мен мырзалар. Добрый день, уважаемые дамы и господа. Давайте начнем нашу работу.
So let's begin this panel session number 6, sectoral view on energy efficient buildings. My name is Alexandr Belyi. I am the UNDP coordinator for energy efficiency projects. So we help the government of Kazakhstan in promoting energy efficiency, including in the building sector. President Tokayev of Kazakhstan recently made a very important statement that by 2060 the country should become carbon neutral. This initiative implies a lot of work in reducing energy consumption and promotion of alternative energy. And urbanization as a process is growing worldwide. Kazakhstan is no exception to that rule. By 2050, according to forecasts, cities and towns will house more than 70% of the total population. Cities are the largest consumers of energy. The building sector accounts for about 50% of all energy consumption. In the emerging economies, at least 1/3. However, we need more and more energy because of developing technologies. Especially considering that in Kazakhstan the climate is quite cold, that is even more relevant than anywhere else. And that's why our overarching objective is to make sure that buildings are energy efficient. This covers just as new buildings and old buildings as well, which have to be modernized. According to a recent McKinsey report, most of the technologies available that are necessary for decarbonization of the construction and the building sector are already available. And this includes such solutions as reduction in gas consumption and also in introduction of alternative sources of energy for heat supply, which can replace traditional energy 100%. However, we also need to be mindful of the cost of such energy, so in Kazakhstan is particularly in order to make sure that they are accessible in terms of price as well for most of the population, which is a very difficult challenge because, as you know, this has to do with low energy prices for energy in Kazakhstan compared to Europe, for example. At this session today, we will look at energy efficiency opportunities in Kazakhstan and in the region as a whole for buildings as well and beyond, introduction of different standards and implementation of projects in that area. I would like for our speakers to focus as much as possible on the introduction of such technologies and solutions and on the economic aspects of such projects. Our speakers today will be Nurzhan Dosayev, Construction and Utilities Committee, Ministry of Industry, Infrastructure Development, Eames, Environmental Construction Association of Russia, Aleksandr Dukovski, Pieter van Genuchten, a senior consultant for strategy and policy and energy partnership program, The Hague, and Diaz Baiseitov, GBC, Green Construction Board. So we don't have a lot of time. We only have 50 minutes time for this session. That's why please be mindful of the time limits. A program should have been disseminated among all the speakers. So every speaker gets only 5 minutes, no more, so that we can have a Q&A session at the end. So please be mindful of the time limits. I will prompt you to stop if you exceed your time limit. So let's begin. I would like to give the floor to our first speaker, Nurzhan Dosayev, please. Good afternoon, everyone.
Республика Казахстан
The Republic of Kazakhstan is moving in the area of energy efficiency and is working on reducing energy consumption. In the building sector, I can say that we are developing green economy scenarios, deep decarbonization scenarios, implying a move away from fossil fuels. For heating, we need to introduce and roll out more efficient equipment. At this point in time, most of the utilities and heating included is already obsolete. Obsolescence rate is at least 70%, and coal is used for heat generation at about 60%, which is the most cost-efficient way to generate heating energy. But also, coal is the most polluting source of energy. We can improve the situation by switching to natural gas during stage number 1, if it's available in different regions of Kazakhstan. And in this case, we can also reduce energy consumption if we make a move to natural gas. In this respect, we also have experience of autonomous heating supply in the south of Kazakhstan and the west of Kazakhstan. That's another area where we can reduce energy consumption, obviating the need for district heating or for central heating, if we allow every apartment to heat itself. In this case, also we can use alternative sources of energy such as biomass, industrial waste, coal-bed methane, etc., etc. Overall, here in Kazakhstan, as part and parcel of energy efficiency and decarbonization, we plan also to review all of our building code provisions. We have about 17 such building code provisions in different areas such as insulation, heat insulation, also for wind energy installations, photovoltaic energy installations. Also, there will be new requirements put in place for energy efficiency, for building energy efficiency, for the use of geothermal energy, etc., etc. So that's that's as far as the building code goes. So we also will overhaul our domestic law, where we have about 10 different provisions in different statutory acts. Also, we have a lot of work cut out for us in terms of the modernization of existing housing stock. This housing stock we inherited from the Soviet Union. These are panel-built buildings which are not energy efficient at all, and in terms of heating, they leave a lot to be desired because they leak energy a lot. And we also are looking right now at the regulations of energy wastage rules for basements and sub-basements. Because when it comes to basements and sub-basements, there are also some buildings also lose energy at this level as well. And the Construction and Utilities Committee are also now working on amendments to legal acts of the Republic of Kazakhstan to set up a monitoring system for energy consumption and energy efficiency of buildings. We are looking at the energy consumption, power consumption. All of that information will be centralized in one information system, which will enable us to do countrywide monitoring of the situation and to apply in real time policy responses in a transparent manner, because we'll be able to see in terms of quality, in terms of quantity, how much energy is consumed, how much power is consumed, and what is the wastage rate and what can be done to address the situation. We also plan to strengthen control over energy consumption for new construction. So our building inspections will be directed to pay particular attention to energy efficiency of buildings when they are commissioned. Energy efficiency classes will be introduced, A, B, C, D, and that will be controlled when buildings are commissioned. So that's for new construction. Of course, that will be done in winter. Overall, the Republic of Kazakhstan has every intention to reach our overarching objective, maybe not even by 2060, by 2050, to reach carbon neutrality. Of course, we have serious issues that we need to address and bottlenecks that we need to remove. Right now, district heating stations in Almaty are scheduled to move from solid fuel to gas, to natural gas. So technical specifications are being developed. Design solutions also are being developed in order to support this move for district heating stations to natural gas. That's it for me. I think I've exhausted my time limit. So thank you very much, Nurzhan. Thank you very much. I would like to remind everyone that we have had Nurzhan Dosayev from the Construction and Utilities Committee. Our second speaker, Mr. Eames, chairman of the Russian Environmental Construction Association.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to give this presentation in English, although I understand that maybe many of the viewers are Russian speakers. Thank you very much for the invitation. I look forward to next time coming again to your wonderful country. I have a short presentation which shows, gives an overview of what's going on at the moment in Russia, in the Russian Federation. So first of all, I'd like to say that the green building, after probably the last 10 years of discussion, is finally really taking off in Russia. There are over 300 projects, and one of the main tools for green building are standards which are being used mostly by private companies. So we can see international standards, BREEAM and LEED, which are used in most of the 300 projects I've mentioned. About 80% of them are BREEAM and about 20 LEED. We also have a Russian commercial standard, which has around another 200 projects. Our council, similar to the Kazakh Green Building Council, but a few years older, is working also on state standards. So GOSTI, this year we're creating 8 new standards around tourism, green roofs, and some other areas. I would also like to say that there's a push from manufacturers and from solution providers this year. We've had unprecedented response from them, looking for new opportunities. These include glass manufacturers, steel manufacturers, manufacturers of various different new construction techniques, windows, insulation. I think the problems that we face in Russia are pretty much the same as across the world with the pandemic at the moment. The pandemic, the office sector particularly has been hit, and this year in summer we had record temperatures in both the Urals and in Moscow, which has led to people really understanding the importance of green building and building better buildings. In Moscow at the moment, the Moscow Urban Forum is ongoing, and these problems are being discussed, including the huge loss of productivity as a result of buildings being unfit for purpose. Projects which are ongoing with the Ministry of Education and also with private school providers, for example, the Rybakov Foundation with their play schools realized that 300 schools need to be refitted, creating wonderful conditions for students, which can increase their ability to study by 30% using international data. The international standards that I mentioned, BREEAM is moving forward very quickly. It's supported by the state's authorities, who are publicizing also and making speeches saying we need urgently to bring in these complex green building standards, which as being voluntary standards but supported by the state, solve the problems much faster than changing all of the building norms. For that, we also have educational programs ongoing, for example, with the MGSU, the main construction university. I don't think you need to know more about the standards. I think that they're common for everybody. Well, obviously, with the healthy buildings is coming in very quickly. As far as the solutions are going, the response in the market has been very positive. We have modular construction companies mainline coming into play, and we have many other solution providers setting up in Russia, opening new factories. One which is worth mentioning is the CLT industry, the cross-laminated timber. Russia has huge timber resources, which we expect to be exported. In discussions with this company, they've just opened a factory, and their production could cover 200,000 square meters per year of buildings at about half the price of the regular construction costs for concrete buildings and other panel buildings. We have some wonderful final examples in Russia of award-winning developers who are finally, despite their conservatism, are taking the plunge, winning awards like this one here from Brusnica, which won a European award a few weeks ago in the BREEAM Awards for their building in Tumin, being super energy efficient. It has natural ventilation, amazing windows, great acoustics and other thermal comfort, and has won a BREEAM Excellent Award. So that's all from me. The industry is moving on quickly. We have hundreds of members now, and we look forward to further cooperation with Kazakhstan and our colleagues there. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое, господин Eames, очень интересно.
Thanks, Mr. Eames, for very interesting insight. It was great. Let us proceed. I would like to give the floor to the next speaker, Mr. Aleksandr Dukovski, the CEO, the chairperson of the panel of experts on energy and efficiency of Eurasian Economic Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the introduction. My previous speakers have focused on quite interesting developments that they had during their work here. So I will point out some of the key focus points of the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, of which Kazakhstan is also a member state. And we have a joint task force on energy efficiency in buildings under the group of experts of energy efficiency, which has already done some important work for the entire UNEC region, where we focus specifically on energy efficiency in buildings. So we have developed several studies on mapping of existing technologies to enhance energy efficiency in the buildings in the entire UNEC region, also subdivided by sub-regions. We also have done mapping of energy efficiency standards and technologies in buildings in the UNEC region, which we put actually the technical aspects and the legislation with the standards joined together to provide some kind of comparison between countries, and which countries have different standards, different available technologies, so they can share their knowledge between themselves and compare to what other countries have done, or maybe even take some kind of knowledge from another country, what has worked in that country, what is still in development, what are the further steps that those countries are planning to do, and adjust them to their own needs. In addition to what we have already done with the Joint Task Force on Energy Efficiency in Buildings, we have also prepared framework guidelines for energy efficiency standards in buildings, which is a key document for our group of experts, because according to these standards, we have also, and these guidelines, we have also done some kind of high performance building initiative, under which we have put several international centers of excellence for energy efficiency in buildings, which work on specific problems for energy efficiency in buildings and disseminate those technologies and those results to the countries as well. In addition, with the help of the Russian Federation, they have provided funding for one of the regional advisory services projects, which is enhancing national capacities to develop and implement energy efficiency standards in buildings in the UNEC region, which means that all those studies and mappings that we have done before, if some of the member states feel that they need additional help to either adjust to similar standards or develop their own standards, this project actually helps them develop suitable legislation, suitable guidelines for their own countries to actually put them into a future betterment of energy efficiency in buildings in their country. What also the group of energy efficiency in buildings, energy efficiency is doing is that actually we have done some interesting studies of where investments in the future should be focused on. And energy efficiency, we regard it as a primary fuel, because when investing in energy efficiency, you technically not only investing in the reduction of the energy intensity and the reduction of potential reduction of energy, but also you are lowering the investment cost of the infrastructure required on the supply side, also on the side of the demand. And energy efficiency in buildings is key point, because almost 40% of the entire energy consumed in the UNEC region, and that is the 54 member states, or almost 40 to 50% of the entire energy is being consumed by buildings. This is a huge market where new business models should be developed, where we have to look at how energy efficiency in buildings is going to be modeled in a way that it's going to be practical for companies to invest in, and to find the business models where saving energy is more, I'd say, beneficial than selling energy. I will give the links to all these studies and what we are doing, and the group of experts on energy efficiency to the organizers of this event, and they can disseminate to the participants of this forum. It is a short time, and we can talk about in the questions and answers if you need additional information. Thank you very much again for the invitation, and I hope that everybody will take a look at what we have already done, and maybe together with Kazakhstan we will do a little bit more, because Kazakhstan is one of the countries that is highly involved in what we are doing in the UNEC. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Спасибо большое, Александр. Давайте перейдем дальше.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Let us proceed. We have another speaker. I would like to give the floor to Pieter van Jeroen. Pieter is the chief consultant on strategy and policy of energy transition program. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. I'd like to share my presentation with you. Okay, you can see my presentation.
Да, видим.
Okay, so Yes, here we are. I'm from the Netherlands, therefore I'd like to start with a small introduction to the country, the Netherlands, situated in the northwest. Full screen. Okay. Here we are. Just the size of it, it's 35,000 square kilometers, which is 1.3% of Kazakhstan, actually a very small country, with a population of 17 million, which is almost 85% of the present-day population of Kazakhstan, if I'm correct. So it's a very small country, but sizable size of population anyway. The climate is completely different from the climate you have in Kazakhstan. We have a mild climate here in the Netherlands. On average, just 10 days, temperatures below zero, 5 days above 30 degrees Celsius, and 80 centimeters of precipitation. Half the year, the sky is covered in clouds, whereas you in Kazakhstan have beautiful blue skies, as I've heard, for almost the entire year. Altogether, we have 8 million houses and about 1 million other kind of buildings, and which is a very typical to the Dutch situation is we have almost every house has its own boiler on natural gas to warm its house. And that's a situation which is, I think, very practical. Okay, in order to make clear what the 8 million houses are in terms of insulation, in terms of energy use, we've made a system, you know them from all kind of consumer products which you can buy in a shop or whatever. You always find A, B to G in terms of energy use, and G, as you can expect, is the worst, whereas A is the best. I can tell you that all new buildings to be made in the Netherlands are even above A. They are called A++, and they are actually climate neutral. Which brings me back to the 8 million houses at this moment in place already. The great part of them have to be improved in their energy use. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see the A, B, C, D, E, F, and the dark green is the theoretical energy use in a certain house of a certain level, be it A or be it D or be it E. The light green is the actual use of energy. And what you can see, which is really interesting, is that when you come from A to C to D, you see an improvement or an increase in energy use. But as soon as D is reached, D, E, F, and G, unfortunately you can't see it, but D, E, F, and G have the same kind of energy use, which means that the people living in those houses use their gas boiler, more or less, to get about an even kind of energy use, which means an even kind of energy bill they have to pay each year. So it's the behavior of people that limits the amount of energy they actually use. Instead of heating the entire building, they just heat the rooms where they're in, and they heat the rooms when they are awake, and they heat the rooms they like to heat when they are just in the house. Very neutral and logical things to do, but you see that in that sense, energy is something people, and the price of energy and the bills they have to pay for it is something that influence people in the use of the energy. I think this is something that came up after some study of about 40,000 households in Amsterdam some years ago. Whenever you watch a house, this slide is in Dutch, but you can see the figures. By the roof, you lose about 30% of the energy. And by the floor, about 10% of the energy. The walls are good for 20%, the windows 15%, and cold bridges 5%. So whenever you start to imply a program on insulation, always look at the biggest lose, which is the roof. Oh yeah, by the way, the ventilation takes away 20% as well. So when you look at a house, always look at what is the best way to put your money in order to get the biggest result, of course. And I'd say start with insulating your roof. The floor is always very nice. Cold feet are notoriously unwelcome for people. Therefore, you always should insulate your floor if possible. Windows, yeah, quite clear, of course, those as well. This would be the perfect and let's say the optimal condition. A house completely wrapped in insulation material, and all kinds of systems in it in which you can use the energy that gets in the house and not being ventilated away, taking energy from the ventilation flow of air into and bringing it into the new air you have to be breathing into your house. Triple plane, double low E glazing, all that kinds of things you can put in. But this is quite a costly operation, as you can understand. And therefore, who profits from insulation improvement? That's a major question, of course. In the Netherlands, we have, that's the figures behind them, 55% of the houses are owned and occupied by their own owner, whereas 15% are privately owned and rented out, and 30% is social housing. So when it comes to who really profits from the insulation improvement, it will be without any doubt that the owner of a house who occupies his own house fully has the incentive to improve its own insulation. Whereas when you come to privately rented dwellings, it's a split incentive. You invest being the owner and your tenant profits. So you have to make some sort of an arrangement to get something of this profit back to yourself, being the investor. In social housing, it's a mixed incentive, as the government supplies the money and gets a lot back in terms of taxes anyway. And poor people, you can always have social rest, social say it better. You have
Peter, I'm sorry, you only 1 minute.
Only 1 minute left. Okay, that's the one thing. Savings only partly cover the investments.
Maximum.
Then I'll go to my last. What are the measures we take? Stepwise improvement of insulation according to standards, subsidizing by national and local government, commitment of private parties, and in the end, mandatory things to do to bring people into speeding up their investment. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Спасибо большое, Peter. Очень интересно было.
Thanks a lot, Peter. It was great to see the incentives, and I'm glad that we received this information. I would like to comment. I visited Netherlands several times, and I saw the houses and buildings that you described. Indeed, there's a lot to learn from, and I'm sure that during the discussion we will have this opportunity to talk about it. Distinguished participants of the session, I would like to give the last floor to the last speaker, who is Diaz Baiseitov. He is the Executive Director of AFD2021, is the Joint Operation for the Building Construction, Director of GBT. Diaz, the floor is yours. Good day, Alexander. Thanks a lot for your introduction. I'm happy to see all the participants of this session in my new position. I'm the Executive Director of HGBC. It's the non-governmental institution that unites all the counter agents in relation to the green construction in Kazakhstan. I would like to check if you could see my slides. Yes, we can see them. Diaz, thank you. Please go on. Great. Of course, the environmental and energy efficient construction is a great challenge for Kazakhstan, because based on the study of Aleksandar who described under UN operations, the losses of some of the obsolete buildings could would be up to 200 watts per square meter, which is outside and beyond the environmental European standards. And when we lose by heating and providing electricity to the buildings, we cause additional environmental issues. What KazJBC is doing, our mission is to propagate the knowledge about the construction of the healthy buildings. Healthy buildings include the concept of buildings that are good for life, work, and leisure. And this is also in line with the energy efficiency and the environmental construction that were mentioned by the previous speakers. The key mission of KazJBC, in addition to the raising awareness, but also providing training to the stakeholders in environmental construction, joining efforts by the key producers and developers and producers of new materials and other beneficiaries in the process of green construction. We would also like that in the future, this environmental practice becomes the normal standard for the overall construction in Kazakhstan. So it would include design, construction, operation, and even the disposal of the buildings, that is the whole life cycle of the buildings. In Kazakhstan, the dominating approach is to build as cheap as possible, to sell as more expensive as possible, and they don't care. We did the study of the BI group where they stated with a 10% cost increase can result in 20-25% reduction of maintenance costs. The leverage is obvious here. Ideally, of course, we would like to go in hand with the time, and by 2050 our aim is for Kazakhstan to transfer to the global standards of construction design and construction design. You know that in Europe the new standard of NZIB is in operation, according to which all the new buildings, including commercial ones, should be in line with this standard. There are certain requirements, including minimal requirements.
So that means that the energy should be able to generate its own energy and to have as few losses as possible. So from 2019, this standard has been in place for municipal buildings. I believe our European colleagues will talk about this more during the Q&A session. And our objective is to compel Kazakhstan's move towards these new standards. What else we do? We have developed an system. I will talk about this later in detail. Also training and education. We have our own educational model. Also green certification for buildings. So this process has already been launched in Kazakhstan. It is growing in Kazakhstan, and we would like to be the most important certificate providers in Kazakhstan. And we also work with the government of Kazakhstan. We would like to be a party to the legislative process. Please involve us because we have also our counterparties from the government of Kazakhstan, from the government agencies. Please use us as an expert resource. We are also part of the World GBC. That's an umbrella organization with chapters and affiliates in many countries of the world. And Kazakhstan is marked as green, which means there is a chapter of this consortium. And this consortium brings together developers, construction material manufacturers. And this year we conducted analysis, and in Kazakhstan we have more than 40 facilities which are undergoing green certification. Usually it's done against standards of BREEAM and LEAN. So these are all famous buildings, landmarks in Kazakhstan. Most of it was built for Expo 2017, but now they're going through green certification. Our larger shopping malls, selected hotels, big office buildings, and mixed-use buildings as well. Of course, these buildings are well known, and on top of the environmental consideration, there is also an economic rationale, because if you go for green certification, yes, there is money up front, but you will save a lot in operations. And also companies that operate office buildings abroad, they have to find buildings for offices that has energy class at least A. So OMIR, what is OMIR? So this has been set up with a lot of expert input, also with stakeholder input from developers and construction companies. So OMIR incorporates Brimlian and Australian Energy Star, but it has been adapted to local conditions, and it can be grouped. It can be divided into 3 groups of standards, such as office buildings, shopping malls, and residential buildings. Under the OMIR standard, we have certified already 3 buildings. So 1 large office building in Almaty and Green Tower in Almaty as well, and Sukhoi shopping mall in Astana, now called Nur-Sultan. The OMIR standard is much softer, and it has softer requirements compared to Brimlian. So OMIR standardization certification is accessible for many buildings in Kazakhstan. Yes, you are out of time. I'm sorry. Please, you have to wrap up. Yes. So these are the main criteria that we have in our standard: management of quality, transport issues, disposal of waste, environmental considerations, the materials used in construction, water, health, and energy supplies. So these are the standards. These are the criteria of the standard that we use. So there are 4 levels from bronze to platinum, which can be achieved with minimum efforts. And the certification process, we actually plan to do all of our operations online. So we will move all of our operations online, and certification can also be done for the most part online. So we have a number of advantages. The standard is available in Russian and Kazakh. We're here in Kazakhstan. All of our experts understand the local context, so you don't need to go anywhere. You don't need translators, so you can talk to us in either Russian or Kazakh for certification. Thank you very much. My contact information is available on the last slide. Thank you very much. Thank you, Diaz. Ladies and gentlemen, we have concluded our speeches, and now let's move on to the discussion. For the last speaker, yes, I concur with Diaz, and I can confirm that according to UN information, 10% more costs in construction leads to a 30% reduction in operational costs later down the road. And actually, you can look it up on our site as well. There is a chart. There is also a reference to the study where that information came from. Now we have our Q&A session. We have received some questions, and I will pose these questions to selected panelists. I also have prepared some questions of my own that I will pose to the panelists as well. So I will begin with a question that we received from the audience, and I believe that's the most important question, because we talked at length and ad infinitum about technology and approaches, but sometimes these technologies are not relevant for new construction. So there is this question: are there examples of support for construction of energy efficient and zero emission buildings? And what kind of support measures are there for construction of such buildings? How can we incentivize developers to build green buildings or zero carbon neutral or zero emission buildings? So you have only 2 minutes time for this, for every answer to every question. Please raise your hand and I'll see who would like to take each and every question. So Diaz wants. I don't see any raised hands aside from Diaz. Yes, because I am a local expert. So I will tell you about what I know about support measures. Yes, Alexander, of course, cannot talk about this, but UNDP, because Alexander works for UNDP, and I know that UNDP works a lot and channels a lot of money and grants into energy efficiency projects, and not just in Astana, in the capital, but also in Karaganda. Grants have been issued by UNDP, and building modernization and decarbonization projects have been piloted using these UNDP grants. And a great outcome of all these projects include methodological recommendations, which UNDP has posted on its website. So you can look it up and use it as a methodological guidance. So which materials to use, so which technology to use, what you can expect in terms of outcomes. So that's number one. I also know that the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development now has launched a program for microfinance credits for these solutions to reduce the energy efficiency and to reduce the carbon footprint of buildings. That's what will happen in Kazakhstan. Unfortunately, there is no government support. There is no state support. Perhaps it will appear in the near future, but at this point, zero, zilch, nada. Anybody else? Please, Alexander.
Thank you very much. As I mentioned, within the group of experts on energy efficiency, we have different experts that are part of the group, but also we have institutions like the Passive House Institute, which disseminates best practice results and has its own standards how to achieve literally zero energy buildings, or nearly zero, in some terms even net positive buildings. But I have to exclamate one particular point, is that usually these type of buildings are quite expensive to be built. In usual terms, when we get to nearly zero buildings, to actual zero buildings, the prices can differ 40% or even more. As you go higher with the energy efficiency standard, the diminishing returns also have to be taken into account. But what is more important when we look at from a point of view of support is that the government should put first a good example from its own buildings to set up standards, to educate the experts, and to create this type of infrastructure between the developers, the construction group, the experts in the field, the architects. And when all of this is being gathered, then a support scheme, either through low credits or government subsidies, to be done in order to take this knowledge from the groups and actually implement them. If you have just a support scheme, but not the whole infrastructure, including the experts, including the architects, including the industry that goes behind, whatever you are doing is not going to be substantiated by good results. That's my opinion, and I implore you everybody to check the Passive House Institute standards. They are quite good at this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexander. So that's a very important and valuable addition. I also would like to expand on what you've said. Yes, so thank you very much for pointing out the role of the government. And for Kazakhstan and for the former Soviet Union, the government is even more important than anywhere else. I can show you an example. For Expo 2017, that was hosted by Astana, now Nur-Sultan, and the capital of Kazakhstan. We built a handful of zero emission buildings, all passive buildings. So they produce energy. They don't consume energy. They're net producers of buildings. Actually, I've visited some of them. They are great, but the cost of them, Alexandr said 40%. Unfortunately, in Kazakhstan, the actual cost was twice as expensive as regular construction because we have a lack of construction materials, which we have to import because nothing is produced in Kazakhstan. We had to import everything from Europe, from Austria, and one company installed and constructed low-rise buildings, energy-producing buildings. So they are net producers of buildings. They're connected to the grid. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have one more question. We have time only for one more question. The next question will be for everyone. Everyone will have a couple of seconds, maybe 20, 30 seconds for an answer. What are the main problems? What are the main advantages and opportunities for ensuring sustainable construction? We're talking about zero-emission buildings and energy-producing buildings. So what are the advantages and challenges and problems in Kazakhstan and broader in Central Asia and even beyond? So first of all, challenges and opportunities. So for every expert, just a couple of seconds for an answer. Who will begin?
Пожалуйста, господин Eames.
So
yes,
I think
Mr. Eames.
the biggest challenge is capacity on the market. We don't have enough specialists, experts. All the students want to learn about it, but they're not going through courses in a systematic way. I think that the opportunity is for developers to grow their markets and for many Russian manufacturers to develop new products which they can also export to the rest of the world because labor is cheaper and materials are cheaper in Russia.
Okay, thank you. Next, please. Следующий.
Можно?
Diaz.
May I, Alexander? So I would actually, what I would like to add, there is a talk of a carbon tax in Kazakhstan. So how about we apply the same logic, the same rationale towards construction? Because if you can reduce CO2 emissions during construction and during operations, that can offset your tax liability. And that will create incentives and motivation, not just for green construction, but also for green operations, because owners will also get tax exemptions and tax breaks because they will live and operate in green apartments and green buildings. Yes, thank you very much. That's a very important addition. Who is next? Who is next? Do we have any other opinions? Yes, Peter, please.
Thank you. I'd say we have the biggest challenge is to get things done as fast as possible, as we're running out of carbon dioxide budget as a whole, as the entire world. Therefore, I would stress on getting things done as fast as possible. And then you come to, do you have enough material? Do you have enough people? Do you have enough knowledge? Do you have, yes, we have quite a lot of knowledge. Yes, we know the techniques we can use. Yes, but we know as well that they all cost money. But the cost of getting a climate that is out of our hands are far more higher than the cost we have to invest in order to get a livable world for ourselves and our children and our grandchildren to come. Therefore, I'd stress on, don't hesitate to take action. Thank you very much.
Спасибо большое, Peter.
Thank you very much, Peter. That's a very important comment and a very important addition. Gentlemen, do we have anything else to add? If nothing, then I will probably conclude our session. I also have something to add. I'm an expert with a long track record in this area. In UNDP in Kazakhstan, we've been doing projects in this area for almost 20 years with my hands-on involvement. And I will say something that I believe is relevant for Kazakhstan, but probably that relevance will go beyond Kazakhstan. Yes, we have standards for green construction. We have voluntary contract standards. We also have public standards, but implementation of these standards leaves a lot to be desired. And control also leaves a lot to be desired because construction control, building inspection leaves a lot to be desired because during building inspection, so we look at safety, but not at energy efficiency. And as a result, many of our buildings consume much more energy than even is allowed by the building code. I will not pepper you with statistical information. I have given you a link to our website where you can have and where you can find a wealth of information, all the reports that we have generated and raised over the last 20 years. Some of them are available in Russian, in English, and in Kazakh. So to conclude, we have our work cut out for us in terms of transition to low carbon development and reaching carbon neutrality for buildings for Kazakhstan and for the rest of Central Asia, for broader Central Asia. What we have talked about, of course, it's not an exhaustive list of challenges and opportunities, but I believe that that's enough information to guide us in our further activities. I would like to thank all of our panelists. I would like also to thank the organizers. I would like to wish you health, stay safe, stay COVID-free, and I hope that I will see you in person in near future at some event in Kazakhstan, maybe even in Nur-Sultan. Thank you very much and goodbye.